Welcome back to the Tara Palmeri Show. The Epstein files are starting to tell us something that I have long suspected. This wasn't just a sex trafficking operation protected by wealthy and powerful people. As we see the documents dribble out, what's becoming clearer is that Jeffrey Epstein didn't simply survive because he had access. He survived because he was useful to the elites, to foreign governments, and to U.S. intelligence. Newly released records show that Epstein's own attorneys formally asked both the CIA and the NSA, that's the National Security Agency, for files documenting Epstein's contacts with the agency between 1999 and 2011. Let's just pause there. That request covers years after Epstein had already served time for sexually abusing minors in 2008. His lawyers weren't asking whether the government had records. They were asking for proof of affiliation. The CIA responded with what's known as a Glomar response, saying they could neither confirm nor deny the existence of records, particularly if they involved classified connections. The NSA issued a similar denial, warning that confirming or denying intelligence materials would expose sources and methods and threaten national security. So they didn't say no. They said classified. Now, at the same time, the Polish government is now investigating Epstein's connections to Russian expats. They are so alarmed by his proximity to figures tied to Moscow. And now suddenly the picture widens beyond just Palm Beach and the Upper East Side and subreddit conspiracies. You can see a global trafficking operation. I first started reporting on Epstein in 2019 for the Broken Jeffrey Epstein podcast. And over time, I came not just to see him as a predator, but as someone I would call a hyperfixer, someone whose real currency wasn't just his money, but his access, someone who could open doors to presidents, royalty, tech founders, scientists, hedge fund billionaires, foreign dignitaries. Epstein could connect people who wanted to meet each other, but couldn't pick up the phone themselves. Well, it seems clear that also includes law enforcement. He opened doors, but he also managed to have leverage over them, some in the form of blackmail. So when you control access at that level, you become powerful in a way that doesn't show up on bank statements, although his name does show up on a number of bank statements of very powerful men. And this isn't just a theory. This is what I've heard from survivors, attorneys, and people who actually crossed Epstein's orbit, including his own bodyguard of 5 years. During my reporting for Broken Jeffrey Epstein, an attorney for the victims, Brad Edwards, told me about a conversation he had with Epstein's Russian-born bodyguard. He was a former UFC fighter named Igor Zinoviev. And Zinoviev warned Edwards to back off his Crime Victims' Rights Act case. And then he told him something extraordinary. Take a listen here.
You don't know who you're messing with. And you need to be really careful. You are on Jeffrey's radar. And somebody that Jeffrey pays a lot of attention to, which is not good. You don't want to be on Jeffrey's radar. And I said, well, give me some examples. I mean, who am I messing with?
And that's when he looked across the table and whispered 3 letters: CIA. Zinoviev said that during Epstein's brief 2008 detention, just 13 months in a Palm Beach County jail with work release, that one of his first assignments was to visit CIA's headquarters in Langley, Virginia. He claimed he spent a week attending classes there as the only private citizen in the room. And at the end, a senior official handed him a book with a handwritten note inside and instructed him not to read it, just to deliver it to Epstein in jail. Edwards later wrote about this warning in his book, Relentless Pursuit. Take a listen here.
He said, listen, when he was in jail, one of the first things that I had to do was go to Langley, to the CIA, and sit in these classes for a week with the CIA. I was the only private citizen there. At the end, the assistant director or director, I don't remember which, gave me a book with a handwritten note in it that I was told not to read and go deliver it to Jeffrey in jail. Everybody there knew who he was. He's an important person. And I said, is he in the CIA? He said, I don't know.
I tried to independently verify this. I contacted the CIA, which keeps logs of everyone who enters Langley. After some initial communication, they stopped responding. Zinoviev never returned my calls or messages, but my former colleague at the New York Post, ML Nestel, he interviewed Zinoviev for New York Magazine. He told me that he found him to be very credible. And now, years later, we're seeing Epstein's own lawyers formally trying to extract intelligence records about him. That matters because this wasn't curiosity. This was legal strategy. Now let's add another piece. Epstein appears multiple times on the schedule of former CIA Director William Burns, including meetings that occurred when Burns was serving as Deputy Secretary of State. Now, state and CIA work very closely together as many diplomats work in clandestine services. Former CIA clandestine officer John Cipher, who spent nearly 3 decades recruiting foreign sources under diplomatic cover, told me that if Epstein was meeting someone at that level without analysts involved, it likely points to an informal relationship, sharing insight and foreign contacts directly. Take a listen here.
Someone who can be of assistance that can help make those connections. Because intelligence, like most anything else, is networking, right? And so it's personal relationships, it's networking. So a hyperfixer is someone who can find ways to connect you with who you need to be connected with.
Sounds like something that Epstein could do.
Yeah.
Officially, the CIA told the New York Times that those meetings between Epstein and Burns were about private sector opportunities as Burns was leaving government. But now we're seeing additional exchanges and messages in the latest document dump. And suddenly, Epstein doesn't look just like some financier who hosted creepy dinner parties. He looks like someone operating in the gray zone between diplomacy, money, and intelligence, which helps explain how he stayed untouchable, how he secured a sweetheart deal in Florida, how he continued to travel freely, how he kept powerful friends even after his crimes were known. This starts to resemble something closer to Whitey Bulger, committing crimes while being protected because he provided value to the system. But Epstein wasn't an informant in the traditional sense. He was a broker, connector, a fixer at the highest level, a keeper of secrets. And if that's true, then the Epstein story isn't only about abuse. It's about how power shields itself, how intelligence operates in shadows, and how a man accused by hundreds of girls managed to remain indispensable. And they raise the most uncomfortable question of all. Was Jeffrey Epstein allowed to operate because he was useful? Because if that's true, then this wasn't just a failure of justice. It was a feature of the system. I'm going to get into even more of this on Don Lemon's show, but first, a moment from our sponsor. Look, I think we can all agree that Medicare is confusing. Talk to anyone over 65 and they'll tell you the same. Even after hours of research, you don't end up coming up with the right plan that fits your needs, costs thousands of dollars every year. And then there's the whole keeping track of the enrollment periods, understanding all your plan options, making sure you're on the right plan that matches your time and energy. That's why I want you to know about my Medicare partner, Chapter. They're the only national Medicare advisor that compares and recommends every plan, helping people save on average $1,100 on healthcare costs. People are relieved when they talk to Chapter because they will search through all of these plans in under 20 minutes, and it's easy and it's free. They won't push you to buy a plan. All of these advisors, they're salaried. They don't make any money from it. So their support is completely free. So if you're turning 65 soon or you have questions about your Medicare coverage, call them to get the most out of Medicare. For free and unbiased Medicare help, dial 305-515-5237 to speak with my trusted partner, Chapter, or go to askchapter.org/Tara.
Tara Palmeri is here, and I'm happy to have her here. I wish it was better. Look, I'm always happy to have you on, but you know what I'm saying. Veteran journalist, author of The Red Letter on Substack, and the host of the Tara Palmeri Show here on YouTube. So, Tara, I think this is one of the biggest bombshells yet. I mean, a 9-year-old, they're 9-year-olds, and I don't know. What did you?
There's a 9-year-old? Wait, when did this?
According to Chad Pergram, who's a reporter over at Fox News, says Jamie Raskin said in this tranche, it was, again, that's their reporting. After reviewing Epstein documents,
and
the DOJ,
Chad's
Raskin
a really
says,
good reporter. I've known him my entire career. You know him as well, obviously.
Yeah. Evidence of victims as young as 9 years old. That's what he's saying. He's saying that Raskin said that.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's really sad.
And you remember we were talking about it. I just played Megyn Kelly. Remember when she was like, well, I hear this, and he liked them older, but they weren't quite 10 or 8. They're
Barely legal, I think was
barely
the
legal.
words.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
that was horrible. I mean, I remember listening to the audio from the interviews that the Palm Beach police had conducted with these high school girls. And, you know, I played them on my Instagram because I wanted people to hear their voices. One of the girls called Epstein's penis a wee-wee. You know, like that was how young they were. They were 14, 12, 13, high school girls. And the younger, the better. 9. I mean, it's revolting. But then again, you see that they collected child pornography in his house as well. So, I mean, I don't see how the pictures that he took of these girls were not considered child pornography either. I mean, they are, but it's revolting. It really is.
Tara, why are they, what is the cover up here? Like, what is the reason? Why are they dragging their feet with this? Because it just keeps getting worse. And the person who is mentioned the most in the files beyond the main, Ghislaine Maxwell and Jeffrey Epstein is Donald Trump.
Yeah, he's really mentioned probably the most.
A lot. And they're redacting shit with his name on it.
Yeah, he's really, really up there. It's crazy. And to think that it's causing like such shockwaves in the UK to the point where they're talking about toppling a prime minister because he's selected an ambassador who had very, 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 very troubling ties to Jeffrey Epstein. They're going to take down the leader of their country. They took down a prince. We have had zero repercussions here because of it. It's really sad. It's a sad moment that the U.S. is falling behind on such a basic human right, and the right for these victims to face some justice, and also we were once the leaders of just civility and like justice, and it just feels it feels wrong right now. But the survivors aren't stopping. They had that very powerful advertisement during Super Bowl. They're not stopping, and they're going to be on Capitol Hill this week. I'm pretty sure. I think on Wednesday they'll be there.
Yeah,
and they know that they have to keep the story alive. There is something that really caught my eye. Some new files.
Before you go, can you hold that? Because you mentioned can we play the ad since you mentioned
go for it. Yeah.
Yeah, let's play the ad and then we'll hold your thought. Remember what you were going to say because I want to hear it. But here's the ad.
After years of being kept apart, we're standing together.
Standing together.
Because this girl deserves the truth.
Because she deserves the truth.
Because we all deserve the truth.
Oh my gosh. So I did not see that because it ran towards the end of the Super Bowl, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. And so I was in transit trying to get home so I could wake up. But
did you go to the Super Bowl?
No, I went to a Super Bowl party.
I was like, damn, Grammys, Super Bowl.
I was supposed to go to the Grammys, but I was supposed to go to the Super Bowl, but some things happen and I decided, too much travel. But yeah. But yeah, I was going to go to the Super Bowl, but you know what? I just decided it was too far. And then not that it was too far to go to San Francisco, but having to drive from San Francisco to it was just too much. I couldn't do it.
Yeah. I get it.
But anyways, more important things. Those are kids in those ads. When you look at those are kids.
Yeah, they were. They really were. I mean, 16, 14, 15, Courtney Wild, Jane Doe 1 showed up with braces on her teeth. Like this was his MO. Like this wasn't a barely legal thing. And even if it was, it's disgusting. Like
it's gross. Yeah.
Yeah. It's really foul.
What were you going to say though? You said you were looking, saw some files or something.
There was, so there was some stuff that came out in the Epstein files. And actually, Washington Post did some great reporting on it. Just sad that they're losing basically their entire editorial team. But they found that Epstein's lawyers contacted the CIA and the NSA to ask for proof of his affiliation with the agencies. Okay. And they got back to them with a Glomar response, which was basically an either confirm or deny, or we can't, the NSA said we can't say anything because it would give up sources, classified information, et cetera. And that's pretty significant. And the latest tranche found that he was actually messaging with Bill Burns, the former CIA director, a lot. Like, there are messages, there's texts. He had this relationship with, major intelligence agencies in the US. And I think it explains why he received these sweetheart deals and, why these victims still to this day feel like there was something very dark and nefarious that continues to go on, and why power is policing itself to this day and protecting itself in this story. So I felt like that was a pretty significant file. That his lawyer, this was a strategic decision by his lawyers to try to get information that showed that he was helpful to intelligence agencies.
Yeah, which reminds me of something. By the way, if you're just joining us, Tara Palmeri is here. Tara Palmeri is a great reporter, and she is the author, you can say. Her Substack is Red Letter, and it's over on Substack, obviously, but it's called Red Letter. And also she has a YouTube show, the Tara Palmeri Show. So, and that's who we're talking to today. I don't know if you happen to see, Tara, the John Ossoff this weekend. John Ossoff said when he talked about this is the Epstein class that we're in. And when you were saying that about, being able to curry favor or whatever with all these organizations, John Ossoff is right. This is the Epstein class, and they are getting away. Many of them probably got away with it. That's what we're in right now.
Right, exactly. And here's the thing about Jeffrey Epstein. People are like, was he a spy? I don't think he was a spy. I think he was useful. I think he was a hyper connector. He could connect intelligence agencies with people, foreign dignitaries, presidents, powerful hedge fund managers. He had information that could possibly help them with their files. He was obviously in very close connection with Russian expats, to the point where Poland is now investigating his connections to Moscow. So I think it shows that this isn't just a Palm Beach, Caribbean island, Upper East Side sex trafficking operation, that this is global, and that he was been able to operate without without any recourse, because he offered something that the government found to be more valuable than protecting young women and girls. It was the information he could provide. And it's really troubling. I mean, we've seen this throughout history. Whitey Bulger playing both sides of the law while killing people, but offering the FBI information. But I think it's just, it's really affirmative. And when I was working on the Broken Jeffrey Epstein podcast in 2019 with Virginia Giuffre, I spoke with her lawyer, Brad Edwards, who told me a story about not interviewing, but a warning he got from Epstein's bodyguard, Igor Zinoviev, who is this Russian-born UFC fighter. He was his bodyguard for 5 years, the height of the sex trafficking operation. He said, back off. You don't know who you're messing with. And he said, CIA. And then Igor told him that he went to Langley for a week to pick up some files for Epstein while he was in that Palm Beach County jail serving his 13-month sentence. And that he brought them back, and he was told not to look at them. And, I reached out to the CIA, I emailed, back and forth. They would not tell me whether Igor Zinoviev was on the property. I reached out to Igor, who wouldn't get back to me. I reached out to also ML Nestel, who I worked with at the New York Post. He was a really good reporter, and he interviewed Igor. And I was like, do you think Igor is a reliable source? And he said that, yeah, he did. And so it's just interesting to kind of see this all sort of becoming full circle, to see that he had these types of relationships with the former CIA director, to see that, Even his lawyers were trying to show that he was helpful in some way or had an affiliation with these agencies, and that his bodyguard wasn't wrong.
Yeah. Tara, thank you. I appreciate you joining us. And you said Wednesday, we're going to hear more from the victims of this on Capitol Hill, and we will be covering that for you. Thank you. Tara Palmeri, Red Letter over on Substack and the Tara Palmeri Show on YouTube. Thank you. And on all socials, Tara Palmeri.
Thanks.
Thanks so much. Thanks a lot.
Bye.
Okay.
That was another episode of the Tara Palmeri Show. Thanks so much for tuning in. If you like this show, please rate, follow, subscribe, share it with your friends. If you are more interested in this reporting, go to tarapalmeri.com. It's where you can get my exclusive reporting and investigative journalism like this on my website, and it's a way to support my independent journalism. I want to thank my producer, Eric Abinate. I want to thank Abby Baker, who does my research and social media, Adam Stewart on the graphics, and Dan Rosen, my manager. See you again soon.